Hello, welcome to Enduro 360. I'm your host, Chili White. Today we're here doing a little follow-up on our 2013 Husaberg FE350. We are kind of at the midpoint in our test time with the Husaberg 350, and it's another great little bike from Austria. One of the biggest questions everywhere I go people ask me is about the suspension setup, because obviously this bike is, it's really basically the same bike as a KTM 350 XCW or EXC, but with a couple of changes. Of course, we've got the whole plastic subframe here that's a little unique, so technically the seat is different. It has a different gas tank, different shrouds, but when we get down to actually the motor, the frame, swing arm, wheels, brakes, all that stuff, it's really pretty much identical to the KTM. But of course we have the new 4-chamber fork in the front, and everybody wants to know about that. We haven't had very much information available yet. Fortunately, WP has just produced a video on doing the oil service on it, so we've got that linked up on the Enduro 360 website. And so I thought I'd talk just a second about some of the setup that I'm running right now as we're testing. One of the early things when they did the European intro on these bikes months ago was a lot of the word that came back, for whatever reason, was that this fork was set up really soft. In fact, some of the comments were that it was almost dangerously soft. For whatever reason, I don't know if it's set up or if some of the internal specs actually changed. My test bike is not like that at all. It's actually relatively stiff. That is to say, it's quite a bit stiffer than my 350 EXC that we're testing. And one of the reasons I think has to do with something just absolutely as basic as the clickers on the suspension. So here we go. This new fork has compression on the left, rebound adjustment on the right. There is no clicker adjustment on the bottom. On the compression, I'm running that at 10 clicks out. And it's got the nice big knob on it now, so that's really easy to adjust even on the fly. It's nice for testing. And then the real change is, again, because there's very little spec information, I don't even know exactly what the factory spec for where the clickers are supposed to be set. When my bike came, it was set up with the rebound at, I believe, 12 clicks out. And it worked good in some conditions until you started really going fast, and then all of a sudden the fork was riding really low in the stroke. The problem, quick call to KTM and say, oh yeah, what you need to do is you need to open that rebound adjuster way out. So we're running that at about 17 to 18 clicks out right now. That has totally transformed the character of the fork. Now this thing stays up in the stroke really well, it goes through the whoops well, and overall I have to say I'm really happy with it. I see lots of potential in this fork. Having just looked at the WP video for the service, it's a little more complicated than an open chamber, but I think it's something that the average guy who wants to take a little time will be able to learn. Out back, the shock, again, this looks like it's the exact same setup as XCW or EXC. Cosmetically, it looks like that. It's even got the same 6.9 spring on there. But this shock on the Husaberg has completely different valving, and it's a much, much stiffer setup. To give you some reference, I'm running the 7.2 on the 350 EXC, and it's still quite a bit softer than this shock is with the 6.9 on it. So right now we're running the clickers pretty open. I've got the low speed rebound set at 20, the high speed rebound low speed compression set at 20. High speed compression set at 1.5 turns out. And then down here on the rebound, again, we're running it pretty open. I've got that at 22 clicks out. And it's pretty good. It's nice and stiff. The bike rides kind of high in the stroke, not so much to really feel stink bug. For the most part, I really like it. There's been a couple of instances where we got in some real choppy terrain where it felt a little bit harsh. But since then, I've actually opened that low-speed compression up, and that's helped it a little bit. So for my 200-pound frame, this bike actually holds itself up quite well. And then I want to show you real quick how I do a sag measurement, and we'll get on to the service video. Now when you're doing sag measurements, it's kind of a tricky thing. Should we do race sag or should we do static sag? Race sag is really what I think is the most important one, because get the rider on the bike in full gear and see where it's sitting. The challenge with that is it really takes two people to do it, and it's easy to get the sag a little bit off. That means if you're sitting on the bike slightly different, if you have a different person doing the measuring, one measurement to the next can actually change pretty easily. So once I have the bike in the right range, from there on out I just do static sag. I have an inexpensive tape measure here with millimeter markings on it, and you can see right in the range I've taken the Sharpie and made some marks on there. Those are marks on a typical KTM style bike where it comes up to the fender. So we've got it hooked right down there, a spot on the rear axle right up against the adjuster block, and then you can see right here I've made a mark on the fender that corresponds with that mark on the tape measure, and now I've got my starting point. Now all I have to do is drop the bike down off the side stand, put the tape up here, again take the same measurement and see what my difference is. Right now on this bike I'm running about 30 millimeters of sag. KTM typically recommends about 35, so 30 really is telling me that spring is just a little bit light, and that falls right into the range of what I would expect from this bike. So I hope that helps you out a little bit, and we are going to continue on testing with 2013 FE350. So far so good, love this bike.